Hey, Summer here. In this video, I just want to go through what's changed in the latest update to the Somber Warhammer mod for Dominion 6. It's version 1.11. I haven't done one of these videos in a while, but I know people quite like them, so I'm going to try and do them for future updates to the mod. This one's kind of got some interesting stuff in it. So through the course of this video, I'll just be going through showing you the changelog in Notepad, and then I'll switch at appropriate moments to showing you some stuff in Dominions itself. So the first thing, and kind of one of the major things that's changed in this version, is I've added a new submod, which is for the Strigos nation. So this adds the nation of Strigos optionally. It is a submod, so you don't have to have it with the main mod. The Strigos nation uses only content which is available within the Vampiria nation, so no new content other than the flag. But it excludes all the non-Strigoi bloodline stuff and does not use the bloodline system at all. As such, it is considerably more limited and weaker than Vampiria, because it obviously doesn't have all of those choices of different vampires, different paths they can get. But it was specifically requested by an enthusiastic fan of the mod and one of my supporters on Ko-Fi. This submod could serve as a template for further more limited submods. But what I mean by that is I might, for instance, do like a Clan Pestilence version of the Skaven Nation as like a submod, but if I were to do that, it wouldn't get any new content other than a flag. It would just be using content from the main mod, and the reason for that is that any new content I make, I want, to be part of the big mod, not to just be a specific optional thing. The other submods have also been updated, so the pop type mod, AI Pretenders mod, AI Starting Forces boost mod, so that they support the Strigos nation as well. So I'll just show you the Strigos nation in Dominions now. So the way that you enable the mod is go to mods, enable your Somber Warhammer copy of choice, which in this case I'm using static version 1.11. So you would enable that first, and then after you've enabled that, and it is important to do it afterwards for this particular submod, you would enable Somber Warhammer Strigos. So we've got that one enabled, and then we would enable Somber Warhammer Strigos submod. So with that turned on, when we then go to create a new game, I'll just select the arena map. Middle Ages as per normal. Let's just put both players to human. When you go to select your nation, you can see that Strigos, Children of Lostmore Cain, now appears as one of your options. A nation of powerful and monstrous Strigoi vampires ruling over loyal human subjects, hordes of ghouls, and legions of undead. Legions of undead servants in an attempt to restore their former glory. So we can select Strigos. There's no conflict or anything, technically speaking, with any other nation, so we can also have Vampiria in the same game if you wanted to, and they could also use the Strigoi bloodline. It doesn't make any difference to that. It's just for people who specifically want to play the Strigoi bloodline and not the other ones. So if we select both of them, this is the Vampiria kind of loading bit. You can see it doesn't have very much shown because all of their bloodline stuff isn't here, and they have to select which bloodline for each fort they're going to use. Whereas if we go to Strigos, you can see it's already got a bloodline selected. There is no bloodline system happening, you just have the recruits that you have, so you can see it more like a traditional nation. And you can see that there's no content in here that isn't in the Vampiria one. There is some content, some kind of troops and things that I can show you individually, which are new, and I'll just show those now so that people can pause the video and have a look at them if they're interested. We've got the Strigony Domu Commander, which is available in any fort. We've got the Strigony Caravan Guard, which is a new troop, hybrid one, ranged and melee, uses the half pike, which is basically just like a long spear but two-handed, or a short version of a pike. He is stealthy. The Strigony Warrior now has stealthy. I think that wasn't the case before. Other than that, same content, but the flag is new content. It's kind of a bit of an overdone flag, but there it is. And you can see their starting sites here. Sorry, this one here. 3 death, 1 nature, 1 earth, and then these are their capital only bits and pieces. They also do have a mechanic where if they conquer an enemy capital, you're allowed to recruit your capital only troops and commanders in an enemy capital instead of in yours. So that's a kind of similarity with the Vampiria nation, but it does work a bit differently. So that is the Strigos submod. So going back to Notepad, we've now got some new content. So first things first, the Chaos Dwarfs. The Chaos Dwarfs have got a Taurus Overlord commander riding a Great Taurus. That's been added as both a multi-hero summon. I'll show you these in a moment. I'll go through each of the nations and show you their bits. They get a new national hero, Zatan the Black, who's like a special overlord riding a great Taurus. So same mount as the Taurus overlord, but a bit better version of the overlord. And they also get a Lamassu sorcerer lord riding a Lamassu mount, added as both a multi-hero and a summon. And I will show you those now. So just in an existing game, going to Pretenders of the World, and going over to the Chaos Dwarfs. If we go over to the luck independent heroes, we can look at Zatan first, the Overlord of Zar, Tower of Zar. So Zatan, I'm just going to put these up briefly. He's basically an upgraded Overlord. He's cool. He's got some items built in like Chaos Rune Shield, Armor of Gazrak, and the Obsidian Axe. You can replace them, but they're there to start with, and they're pretty dang good. He's got very high protection, and he's riding a great Taurus. So this is the new mount that they've got. It's got fear. It breathes fiery breath. It's got magical attacks. It's very tough. Very tough indeed, because it's got barding and high protection, and it's got a lot of hit points. So hopefully quite a powerful unit for the Chaos Dwarfs. They also have, if we go over to Chaos Dwarf multi-heroes, we can see these as multi-heroes and summons. Taurus Overlord, so same mount exactly, the Great Taurus. The Taurus Overlord not as powerful as Zatan the Black, but basically just the same as your other Overlords, pretty good. Doesn't require any upkeep because he's a multi-hero, and summon I don't like them to require gold upkeep generally speaking. And then we also have the Lamassu Sorcerer Lord. So again, just picking that up briefly, but he's got the same path as in the other Sorcerer Lord. He is immune to the Stone Curse, which some people will really like because they hate the Stone Curse. You can see their note about that. And then we've got the Lamassu that he rides around on. It has magic power, it has fear, an awe, shock resistance, fire resistance, poison resistance. It's a tough one to kill. It's not quite as physically strong as the Great Taurus, but it's got a lot of advantages over the Great Taurus. Both of them are sacred. The Lamassu has ridiculous magic resistance because I believe it literally kind of breathes and eats magic rather than ordinary matter. And it's very smart and has the ability to hypnotize things, which is kind of cool. So that's the new content for the Chaos Dwarfs. Oh, actually, I've realized that I should show you the spells that the Chaos Dwarfs get and where those are, because they've got the ability to summon those. So in Conjuration at level 5 for 20 fire gems, you get the Taurus Overlord. This may turn out to be too strong. I don't know. If it is too strong, then I'll change the price on it, obviously. It's tricky to balance these things straight out of the gate because it's this big scary monster, but 20 fire gems is how much the Taurus Overlord costs. He's not a mage, but he is very good. And then at level 6, we get the Lamassu Lord, who again, very strong. He's got good paths and everything, and he costs 35 death gems. So, pretty expensive and at a relatively high level to summon him up. But yeah, you get the Lamassu Lord like that. So switching back over to Notepad, the Beastmen have got 2 pieces of new content. The Great Razor Gore was added as a summonable undisciplined troop, and the Manticore was added as a summonable undisciplined troop. And the Manticore is going to be a theme in the new content through this. So I will show you that now. So going over to Beastmen, looking at their new spells in Conjuration, we've got Tusker Herd they already had. Feral Manticore is the first of them. That's 2 nature, 1 blood, only 4 nature gems to cast, and you get an undisciplined troop. Troop summons obviously tend to be quite a lot cheaper than commander summons. And then the Razor Gore is also 4 nature gems but costs 3 nature, and you get the Great Razor Gore. So I'll now show you what those look like. If we just go over to Pretenders of the World and Beastmen, Amit of the Beastmen, and we'll look in the Beastmen summons. We've got the Great Razor Gore. Oh, I forgot to put the Feral Manticore in here, so I'll have to add him to the site to preview him, but I can show you what he looks like in a moment. So the Great Razor Gore, it's undisciplined, it's a big stack of hit points, it doesn't have great protection, but it does come with built-in spike barbs, it's a trampler, it's got fear. If you throw some buffs on this, it would be a pretty nasty kind of battering ram unit and just charge the enemy. One of the main things is just that kind of fear and very high hit points. It's nice to have. And then the Feral Manticore, what's the easiest way of me showing you the Feral Manticore? I think that... Yeah, give me a second, I'll bring those up on screen. As promised, here is the Feral Manticore. So somewhat similar to the Tuskor. I mean, arguably this is better than the Tuskor, I guess, and I should look at the balance of that. But it doesn't have trample. Instead, it's got berserker. It's also undisciplined. It's flying. It causes fear. It's got multiple attacks. It's a big Manticore. It's similar to the Manticores that Dominions has natively, but there are some slightly differences between the two. So a useful troop summon, I think. So switching back to Notepad, the Dark Elves similarly get some Manticore-themed stuff. They get a Sacred Manticore troop summon, so it's like the Feral Manticore for the Beastmen, but it's sacred. That's both as a summon it's available and as possible outcome for High Beastmaster or for Rakath, the Beastmaster event, so they can kind of tame them through their random events. And also they get a Sacred Manticore Dreadlord, so that's their top level military commander riding a Manticore as a multi-hero and as a commander summon. So let's take a quick look at those. So Nagarond in Conjuration at level 4. We've got Summon Feral Manticore. That's 6 air gems. It's a bit more expensive than because the Beastmen get a discount, but also because this one is holy, it's sacred. So we've got that as the summon there, and then at level 5 we get Contact Manticore Dreadlord for 16 air gems. You get a Sacred Manticore being ridden by a Sacred Dreadlord. So again, they're potentially undercosted if you compare it with like the Bull Taurus was at 20 fire gems. This is 16 air gems, but doesn't have any magic or anything, but a potentially kind of a powerful spell. So let's just show you what those are like. So over to the Dark Elves overview. We can see that they have where are the summons? Dark Elf summons. We've got the Manticore, basically the same as the Beastman one, a little bit less berserker, but he is sacred. And then we have the Manticore Dreadlord. So we've got the powerful Dreadlord style commander mounted on the back of a Manticore. Both are sacred, and of course give him orders. He's not undisciplined or anything, so potentially useful military commander and can do a bunch of stuff. He can also throw barding onto the Manticore, and if you do throw barding onto Manticore, they become very tough because they've got 12 natural protection. They don't need very much barding to be very tough indeed. That's something that I'm going to have a look at. Obviously, with things like the Black Dragon in the past, I had decided that they, I think it's the High Elf Dragon. I decided that they shouldn't have barding because it was a bit too easy to just throw barding on them, even low quality barding, and make them just have way too much protection. So I'll have a look at that and whether that's an issue with the Manticore. So switching over to the Greenskins now, new content is that we have 2 undisciplined Feral Boar troop summons added, and I'll show you those. The Feral Boar is actually another one where I forgot to put it in the preview of the summons, but it's the same stats as the War Boar that the Orc Boar Boys ride, so this is it. Basically the Feral Boar is just exactly the same as this, but it's called a Feral Boar. And here is the research and spells for Black Crag, but both of the Greenskin nations get these new Feral Boar spells. So at level 2 Conjuration, you get Sounder Feral Boars. You get 14 plus 1 for every level for 4 nature gems at 2 nature path cost. And then once you get to level 4, you get the Stampede of Feral Boars, which is double the cost. It's 3 nature to cast. You get 30 and you get an extra 5 for extra levels. So if you have extra levels, high levels on your Pretender or something, you get a huge number of boars from that. They're not sacred or anything like that. We're not talking about Marvini here. They're just feral boars, but potentially quite useful. So now Nagashizzar gets 2 new national heroes. They get Heinrich Kemmler, the Lichmaster, and they get Dieter Helsnicht, the Doomlord, both added as national heroes. Let's take a look at them. So Nagashizzar and luck independent heroes. We've got the Lichmaster Heinrich Kemmler. He's got lots of cool stuff, like he's got Farcaster for death. He's ethereal. He's got very strong death and good paths and so on. And he casts anti-magic on battle start, which is extremely strong, obviously. So very good hero. And then we've also got the Doomlord. He is mounted on a Manticore. It is the non-sacred version with Berserker 1. And he is also a powerful mage, and he has Combat Caster, a bit of fire resistance. But yeah, another powerful guy. He's kind of more fire-based than a lot of the other necromancers. He's got his Rod of Flaming Death and Dark Rune Sword, magic items that allow him to do that. Basically, they just blast people and do lots of damage. Then Norsca also has some Manticore based content. They get a Manticore Lord riding a Manticore added as both a multi-hero and as a commander summon, and they get the Feral Manticore added as a troop summon. So let's look at those. So in level 4 Conjuration, here's the Manticore spell. It's 1 nature, 1 air, 5 nature gems. You get a Sacred Manticore. Is that true? I don't remember if they actually are sacred. That might be a typo on my part. I'll check if they are sacred. You also get the Manticore Lord for 18 air gems. So that's air 2, nature 1 to summon up the Manticore Lord, which of course is a commander mounted on a Manticore. And I believe those are sacred. So let's just look at the... Where are Norsca? Later. Look at the summons. We've got the Feral Manticore, which is not sacred, so I'll put a note about that in the spell description to show it's not sacred. And they've got the Manticore Lord. I believe, yes, his Manticore is sacred because he is sacred. So you get this powerful Manticore Lord. He can't get promoted, unlike the other kind of Jarl level guys or King level guys. He comes with these Frost Rune weapons, and he is riding on the back of a big old sacred Manticore. So that's the new content for Norsca. The Tomb Kings, Nehekara, then get one new national hero. It's Settra the Imperishable, the King of Kings, a very often requested hero. People are really fond of Settra as a character. He's a bit of a meme lord, you know, Settra does not serve and so on. So I've added him in, and there'll be some more heroes in future versions following that kind of, you know, the really popular big ones. But I'm pretty happy with how his graphic turned out, so let's take a look at Settra. So hopping over to the Tomb Kings national overview, we've got Tomb Kings Luck Independent Heroes, and to go with the other guys, we've got Settra, the King of Kings, very, very colourful sprite. He's got a lot of abilities. He comes with the built-in magic item Blade of Petra, does damage to undead, very good. It has 2 attacks, which is important. Gives him Sun Ore and Fire Shield. So you can see he's got Fire Shield, and so does his Chariot. Oh, the Chariot doesn't get Fire Shield. I might have to specify that that's given to the Chariot as well. That might be considered a bug, I guess. He is a Dominion Spreader. He's got Death Curse. He's basically an upgraded Holy 4 version of a Tomb King, but he also has some magic because he was kind of the originator of the Mortuary Cult. He's not very talented at magic, but he's got 2 Death, 1 Fire, and he's riding the Chariot of the Gods, which has got tons of protection, heals itself, is, you know, powerful, basically, has magical attacks. So, yeah, Settra, kind of a very destructive sacred, super heavy character, one of the most powerful heroes I've made, but not particularly powerful mage, not massively impactful in Dominions. Then going back to the notepad, we've got some new content for Vampiria. We've seen the Strigoni Domu in the Strigoi bloodline and in the new nation of Strigos, and the Strigoni Guard, same thing. But I need to show you Gashnag, the Black Prince. I don't think I showed you before. So I will show you him. He is a new, unique, luck-independent national hero for Vampiria and for, of course, Strigos. So here we are in the Strigos nation and the national overview. The Vampiria one doesn't have previews for the heroes because there's not enough space in the national overview screen. I have to show the bloodline stuff, but the Strigos one doesn't have that problem, so it can show them. I guess just the one, unlike Vampiria. This guy is also in the Vampiria unique heroes roster, along with Vlad and Isabella and, you know, not Conrad, Manfred and so on. We've got Gashnag the Black Prince. He's basically a Strigoi with exceptional leadership. Defense organizer, very strong defense organizer, and some other abilities. Basically, he's a kind of a stronger version of a true Strigoi, including glamour magic, and he's a Strigoi who has clothed himself in a dark robe and is kind of hiding his monstrous nature as a very popular leader at the Border Princes. So that is all the new content. Now we're just going to go through the changes, kind of balance changes and fixes that have been made in this version, and I'll give you a bit of reasoning as I go through those. So firstly, the special message that appears at the start of the game telling you what the special mechanics are for your nation, that now fires off every single turn and says, here's a monthly reminder of what those mechanics are. People often would lose the information from the start of the game, and this was something that was requested a few times, so I have added that in just to keep people informed about what's going on with their nation. And because Dominions now supports headers, it doesn't appear as like an unexpected event has happened in your capital and confuse you. It says specifically it's the mechanics explain it, so you can just ignore it if you're not interested in it. Secondly, barding was reviewed across many different units. There's more that I'll probably do for this in the next version. Some new mod commands for barding enabled me to modify barding a bit more granularly, so I've been doing that. So for instance, Bretonia's barding on their horses is no longer the full plate barding the same as the Empire gets. They now get a slightly reduced version of that because they put a little bit less armor on their horses than the Empire do. So Beastmen are fixed. Goros got his club that was missing. That's one of their national heroes. They got a new version of the Tuskor summon that summons up more Tuskor. For Bretonia, Christ of the Royal Pegasus was missing his barding, so that was added. Some of the resource costs for their mounted units were slightly increased because Bretonia was a little bit too overtuned, is I believe the word people use, on resource costs specifically, and I wanted them to have to consider resource costs a little bit more on some of their mounted units. The Grail Knights recruitment point cost was slightly increased for similar reasons. They were a little bit too easy to mass without it being a problem before, so it's just slightly pushed up a bit. And the Green Knight was granted True Sight. This was a bug. He is a kind of a spirit, a fey spirit, effectively a slash ghost. Who knows what his nature really is, but he's got True Sight now. Then for all of the Chaos Nations, Chaos Plate and Chaos Kuras resource costs were increased very slightly, so the Chaos Nations, to get their Chaos Warriors and Chosen and some of their other units, now have to pay a little bit more resources. It's not a big deal for them, but it's just kind of tamping them down a little bit because they were able to get too many troops a bit too easily before and make them consider resources a little bit more than they had to. The Dark Elf Corsair Cove income events now send a message every time they fire, so you can get a bunch of these messages if you're playing as Dark Elves and having your Corsairs go around, but they do have a header, so you can easily ignore them. They're just telling you that you're getting the income, and they tell you specifically how much for every single one of them. This was in response to players being unsure if they were getting the income correctly or not, and if the sites were working, because they were all doing everything silently behind the scenes, and now they're out in the open. For the Empire, Warrior Priests now automatically increase province defense locally, so they got the Province Defense Organizer trait. Warrior Priests of Sigmar have Province Defense Organizer 1, and the Warrior Priests of Middenheim, the Warrior Priests of Ulrich, now have Province Defense Organizer 2 because Middenheim's much more into like defending itself, or like, you know, people volunteering from the local population to just fight against kind of Greenskins and Beastmen and stuff like that. And Ulrich is a more warrior god than Sigmar is. The Warrior Priest of Ulrich also costs slightly more, but it's basically a small advantage for Middenheim. The Wolfkin recruitment points for Middenheim were decreased somewhat. I've been playing the multiplayer and I was finding that their recruitment cost in recruitment points was actually the thing that was being quite limiting with them, and they're not particularly great sacred, so that's a slight boost to Middenheim. And the Bind White Great Wolf spell is now castable outside of Wastelands. It used to be by accident that you could only cast it in Wastelands, and you get a few more wolves with it, so it's a better spell for Middenheim now. It actually works properly. For the Greenskins, this is a fairly significant change to the Greenskins. If one of their bosses now reaches the point of doing a war, they automatically get a built-in item, which they can't remove, but it auto-casts a buff in every single round depending on the type of war boss. So, for instance, an Orc war boss gives strength to those around them. A Black Orc one, I believe, gives extra attack skill to the people around them and so on. It casts that every turn, which kind of encourages you to keep your boss up with your fighting troops, you know, going alongside them as he buffs them every round. And it makes war bosses more interesting and more special, which people have been asking for. The Bone Nose tribe can now recruit Forest Goblin troops only in the forest. They can't recruit them in forts anymore. This is necessary because of some foreign recruitment limits, which I'm not going to get into here, but basically it was required so that I could fix this next bug, which was that the Bone Nose tribe weren't able to recruit Goblin bosses and Goblin Wolf Rider scouts in any of their provinces, which they should have been able to, so they now can. The Lizardman Skink Hunter was given supply bonus 1. All hunters should get supply bonus because they're going, catching animals to feed the army, so they were given that. Mazdamundi's weapon had the wrong name, so that was fixed. Adohi Tager's bearers, so he's one of the unique slan that they have. His bearers had a barding slot, which was incorrect, so that was removed. Here's a balance change for the Lizardman. The Saurus Cavalry were being used very extensively for expansion, and they were like a very effective unit, and I've increased their recruitment cost a little bit. It's not very much, a tiny bit of increase to recruitment cost just to bring them in line with other cavalry and dominions. But the main thing is that before they had I think it was 4 attacks per troop because it was 2 attacks from the cold one and 2 attacks from the rider. The rider was biting people and stabbing them with his lance. And it doesn't really make sense they were doing that, so I've made it so the riders can't bite while they're still mounted on the cold one, but if they get dismounted, they can then switch to biting as well as stabbing. So 3 attacks per troop now, still pretty good, but a little bit of a nerf to Saurus Cavalry. The Lizardman can no longer cast Bind Incubus because it's a demon. That's just something Ilwood added and I hadn't noticed and disabled it. The Lizardman tips for Sacred Spawning, some of the descriptions are wrong and I made some fixes to those. And I gave the Saurus of Quetzal Sacred Spawning the Spikes ability, which is new, which just does some capped 1 damage to people who are attacking with short weapons. It can be useful against swarm, stuff like that. It can kill loads of them that are attacking you. The Morghast summon spells were only working in wastes for Nagashizzar, and I think people hadn't realised that this was a bug, but it was a bug. You're supposed to be able to summon them wherever you want. So yeah, they don't have to worry about going to a waste to summon the Morghasts anymore. The commander summon wasn't restricted by that, but the troops were. But that was unintentional, so I've fixed that bug. Norsca summons preview site has been updated with the Plague Bearer, Bloodletter, Demonette, and Blue Horror. Do they get Pink Horrors? I think they just get Blue Horrors. Well, that's now put in their summon preview that was missing before. For Nuln, the Outriders were a bit too good and they were outputting a huge volume of ranged fire and they've had their gold cost increased. They basically were just too versatile and too good. So they've gone from 25 to 30. That's the level of granularity we're working at here, and I'm sure at 30 they're significantly less good, but hopefully still worth building. We'll keep an eye on them for balance reasons. For Tylea, Malchus Manhide was given one level in the glamour path because it's just something I'd overlooked when I was updating everything that should have glamour. I missed Malchus Manhide should definitely have it. Tomb Kings had lost Wasteland Survival at some point, so I have restored that to them. Yeah, that was a very weird one that went missing, but it's back now. They have Wasteland Survival on all their troops now. For Tzeentch, the Marauder Hunters get +1 precision because of kind of national or racial, I don't know what you call it, bonus to precision that Tzeentch stuff has. So they didn't have that before. They were the same precision as other people. Now they have slightly better precision. For Wood Elves, the Glade Rider Cavalry was recruitable outside the forts is now the correct version. So there was a problem that it was giving you either the buffed or debuffed version outside of forts. I can't remember, but it was the wrong version of the Glade Rider, and that's now been fixed. You get the right version. I've made the notes about forest shapes and the mounted unit descriptions clearer, just telling people what's going on, because basically in Dominion 6 you can't have forest shapes on mounted units. You can, but it causes a bunch of fiddly bugs that I don't like, so I'm just not having those at all. So the Wood Elf mounted units don't change their form depending whether they're in the forest or not, and I'm just making that clear in the descriptions. And the Wild Rider mounted unit had an incorrect unmounted sprite. It was turning into an Eternal Guard or something when it looked like it was turning into one at least, using the wrong sprite when it was unmounted. So now it's using the right one, so that's fixed. And then finally for Vampiria, this Strigony Warrior was given stealth. It always should have had stealth. It was just a kind of a bug that was missing. That is everything for this version update. This has been a pretty long one. Let me know in the comments if you appreciate this type of video, and obviously get in touch with me on Discord and tip me on Ko-Fi if you feel like it. Thanks for watching, and bye for now.